Hello and welcome to TRADOC In-Depth. I'm John Harlow with the TRADOC News Service. At the Association of the United States Army Winter Symposium, General William S. Wallace, the Commanding General of the United States Army Training and Doctrine Command, unveiled the newest Army Field Manual, FM30 Operations. FM30 determines how our Army fights in an era of persistent conflict. I'm joined today by Lieutenant General William Caldwell, the Commanding General, the Combined Arms Center at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, to talk about FM30 and the way it affects our Army. That's next on TRADOC In-Depth. General Caldwell, why was there a need for an updated FM30?
Well, John, our last one was done really almost 7 years ago, and when you look at the world and what has changed, it has stayed so dynamic. We're in an era of persistent conflict. We have asymmetrical threats we're facing as a routine matter now today, that it really was time to go back and relook at that manual and put together, as our Chief of Staff there likes to say, the blueprint for the future.
Sir, one of the major differences between the previous version of FM30 and the new version is the addition of stability operations and civil support operations. Why did the Army feel it was necessary to put stability operations and civil support operations on equal footing as offensive and defensive?
What we have found, to be successful in the environment we're operating in today, we have to be among the people. And I think everybody's accepted that and has fully embraced that concept now. And therefore, the idea that you're going to use just lethal force to accomplish our objectives is no longer sufficient. Important requirement, but not sufficient in itself. And so therefore, the non-lethal aspects become very, very important, and that's looking at stability, civil support. And so what General Casey directed us to do was to make it equal with and on par with and just as important as both offensive and defensive operations.
Sir, has this change in doctrine been driven by lessons learned in Iraq and Afghanistan?
A tremendous amount. The United States Army now has literally been at war for almost 7 years. And when you stop to think about that, I look at our current class of Command General Staff College students. 70+% of them are combat veterans, many with multiple tours. Unlike when I came through the school, less than 0.5% were combat veterans. Today, it's the overwhelming number, and it's only increasing with the next class that's coming in. So we have a different caliber of officer there today that has experience and seen things and done things that we couldn't have predicted just 8 years ago. And so it was important for us to go back, take those lessons that we're learning, that we have taken over time and gotten better with, and incorporate them into our doctrine and our instruction and our education.
Sir, we talked stability and civil operations before. What other major changes have been made to the new version of FM30?
One of the most major changes we have made is the recognition that in the 21st century, this information domain is in fact just a critical component to what we're doing in combat operations as anything else. And so there's an entire chapter that the Chief of Staff of the Army has directed that we incorporated there. And it's based upon the lessons learned and the things we're doing already in theater today. And the realization that as we move further into this century, the enemy we fight, the adversary we're against, operates in a very decentralized manner, literally spread throughout the world, because they can do it through the information domain. And therefore, they also use that to attack against us too. And we have to learn how to operate in there in a much more comfortable manner than at any point we've ever done in my military career.
Sir, how much of a change in FM30 was driven by the ever-changing world environment?
But it's absolutely driven by it. And when I say that, if you've listened to the Chief of Staff of our Army talk, he's talked about how the world has changed. The contemporary operational environment that we're facing today is much different than it was in just 10 years ago. And so to operate in this asymmetric type environment against a very elusive enemy that operates in a very decentralized manner dispersed throughout the world. We, in fact, have to recognize that. And then the environment in which we're operating, too. Everything from the shortages of energies to the populations to all the other factors that are starting to contribute to some of the instability in the world today. And therefore, when you take all those together, they are, in fact, being considered and incorporated into what we're presenting forth as the doctrine we'll operate with here over the next 10 to 15 years.
General Caldwell, thanks for joining me today on TRADOC In-Depth. With the TRADOC News Service, I'm John Harlow.